to our next episode of Mocha Wave Talks. Here at Mocha Wave Publishing, we believe that everyone who reads has their own magic. And I'm excited today to be here with Sarah Kisko. Sarah, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi. So I started in professionally narrating in 2020. It was during COVID. Although I wanted to do it for a while, but I had this chronic cough that kept making me putting it off. And then I guess the timing just worked out as it was intended to. So actually, my background is mechanical engineering. So how I ended up in this, I'm not entirely sure. I just, I always loved reading aloud, and I did a little bit of acting in high school, but then, not so much recently. And, but then I ended up homeschooling my kids, which I hadn't really planned on, but just, life. And I wanted something to do on the side that I could express myself, and, that was just for me, not for my kids or my family. And my kids were like, "You should narrate audiobooks, Mom," because I read to them all the time. And I thought, well, maybe. I'd always been recording books. Like, I'd recorded them for my dad. He used to be a truck driver. I recorded them for like my nieces and that kind of thing. So it was, it was something I always enjoyed doing. And I didn't know that anyone would actually want to listen to me. And I started getting these great reviews. And then I also got a lot of coaching, acting coaching, and dialect coaching, and all kinds of stuff. So that's fun.
Wow. And it was quite interesting how you and I met, because you recorded the audiobook or you produced the audiobook for Forever is Eternity.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking online, and I don't know even how I came upon you, exactly. Maybe somebody I knew was following you also.
I don't know. I'm in a lot of, because I'm also a reader, so I follow a lot of authors. I'm in a lot of groups like that, just because I want to find books for myself to read. And then I just post in there too. So.
And it was your dogs, right? I saw you and this very fun looking person with two huge dogs. And I'm always like, I'm one of those people that I like the very little or the very big, right? Like extremes.
I wonder if they'll come inside. I'll try and get them to come out. So I have two Great Danes. So one is, he's called Blue, but it's really kind of a dark gray. And then the black one's a Titan and Venom. And they're a lot of fun.
It was just so cool, like a really good picture. And it wasn't like I'm an audiobook narrator or anything. It was just like, here I am with my dogs. And I was like, oh, she looks like a fun person. She likes dogs. So let me look and see her profile, see what she does. I looked and I said, okay, I'm curious now. Let me listen to some of her samples, because you have a little link to your samples. And I was like, wow, she's really good. And I think her voice would be really good for Forever is Eternity. And it was just like, you're listening to me, that feels right. It felt right. And I was just like, I just wonder if she can do a British accent. And that's when I reached out to you and we started talking. Right.
Yeah. So actually that was really good, because I've kind of done a lot of accent, like fantasy accents. So it didn't have to be as precise, but I thought, I want to do this right. And I spent a bit of time in the UK because my uncle lives there. And I thought, well, okay. So I started getting some more specific dialect coaching, and actually I loved the whole process of that.
There's a lot of voices. I think we were a really good fit, and I think I was on a live just a little while ago on TikTok a couple days ago, and I was my audiobook had just come out, right? And I was excited, and everybody else around me was really tired because it's the end, it's right for Labor Day weekend, which is like we're all tired at that time. And I was like, yay, my audiobook, and nobody was like, woohoo, right? And so I went on TikTok, and this very, very sweet book talker played the sample for everyone in her group.
Oh, right.
And it was so sweet. It wasn't a big group, but it was like nice little way to celebrate, like to feel like it really was true, like it happened. And they all were like, oh, listen to that voice. Ooh, vampire vibes, like they're all, because it's like the very first, very first part. And they're like, ooh, sexy vampires coming. I was like, yeah, but her Betty and her Peter Pan are good too. I loved your Peter Pan. I couldn't get over it. You've
Yeah.
nailed that. You nailed that so well. I mean, it takes, for me, like when I hear, like I was listening to an audiobook before, and this was a male audiobook narrator, and it was a Jack Reacher novel. And I was like, this voice does not quite do it. And then when they move into a female voice and it sounds like they don't quite understand how to get the female nuance, it's kind of awkward for them. And but when you moved into it, it wasn't like, it felt natural, right? It felt like, and I felt like I was really hearing Peter Pan. I was really hearing, Edmund. I wasn't thinking Sarah. I was thinking right about the
Yeah,
character.
it's a lot more work than people think. It's just you're just reading, but it's like you're acting and you're every single part in the play. Like
Yes, that is true. That is true.
so it's I watched this interview with Andy Serkis, who's amazing.
Yes.
When he narrated the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy and did everybody, and he said, I'm like, he's a very physical actor, right? He said it was like one of the like most exhausting experiences because you have to be all the energy, you have to be up here, you have to be the orcs, and then you're the hobbits, and how he was.
I can imagine. I was listening to when I was listening to the reviewing the recordings, and I was hearing you do some of those very, like those dragons that have a very harsh sounding voices. I was like, I hope she got herself something to drink after that or something.
At least they didn't have too many lines, so that was okay. I thought if these dragons come back in another book, I'm in trouble if they talk more.
I was like, wow, that voice sounded like. Uh, and one of the fun parts was when you shared that character library with me, because then I got to hear
Yeah.
all of the different voices, and that's
I don't
one
know if
thing.
everybody does that, but that helped me because the first couple books I did, I'd be, recording and there's somebody in chapter 2 and all of a sudden you're in chapter 18 and they come back and you're like, who's this person? I don't even know who this is. So I started making the library for myself, but then
Oh,
I
okay.
realized it was a great way to share the character, especially because when you're doing the audiobook, like basically we just give you a 15-minute sample and most of those characters aren't going to be in the first 15 minutes and you've just approved me to do the whole thing. So I think it's really good for communication with the authors to just provide some idea of like, is this in the right ballpark? I know some people, they actually kind of send almost like interview questions to the author, like, who, if there was a celebrity, who do you think this would be and if you were having a movie? Or I find that's a little bit tricky because some people are like, this should be Harry Connick Jr. or whatever. I'm like, I can't do that voice, but you just try and get the spirit of it, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I think I
um,
mentioned about David Bowie.
yeah, yes. No, that was great, right? So it's like, well, obviously I'm not going to be able to do a perfect impersonation of David Bowie, but
Get the
that really helped to
personality.
get, yeah, the spirit of it, right?
Yeah. But then also as I was listening to it, I forgot I was the author for a while. Like I couldn't wait to hear the next part. Like, Peter Pan, what's going to happen to Peter Pan? I could hear the rest because you really did a great job of pulling the reader in, like the listener in. Like, is it like a full production?
Yeah. Oh, that's so great to hear.
Yes, and I just
Yeah, I had a couple authors say that. They're like, I forgot I wrote the book.
that is so
Because it's a
amazing.
totally, like the audiobook is a totally different experience, like from writing or reading or listening,
Yeah, it's
I
kind of
think.
like seeing it as a movie, but it's all hearing it, but you can imagine it right in your mind, and you're like,
Yeah.
wow, that's amazing. And sometimes it validates, like this is the way someone else hears your words or reads your words, and it validates that you did something entertaining, right? Something good. So I had the reader. There's one reader that was talking to me, listener, sorry, reader, listener. She actually
Yeah.
read it in the summer, and then she was listening to it when it came out as audiobook. And she said, "I can't believe this. I already read this, but I'm still like biting my nails and like getting into it because it's so exciting." And she said that voice is so good. Voice is so good. So
Nice. Yeah. So yeah, I find sometimes when you listen to the audiobook, like not, I don't know about my audiobooks, but other people's audiobooks that I listen to, yeah, listening to the voice like adds so much more, like, I don't know, tension and emotion. And I'll find that even if it's a book that I read and I never cried, I'll listen to the audiobook and they'll make me cry. I'm like, why would you do that? But
There was one part I almost cried when I was listening to you do it, and that was, believe it or not, I don't know if I should say because I don't want to give any spoilers, but it's a part with Peter Pan and a part with his shadow.
oh yeah,
It was so poignant because he's trying to act like he doesn't care, right? But you got
yeah,
that emotion, like he cares very deeply. You know, that's his most important thing to him. And then what he's having to talk about, right? It's like hard for him for the that he's lost everything, right? He's a lost boy.
yeah.
So I really, really, really love that part. I just like, oh, and
Yeah, that was a challenge because I, you know, you want to have that kind of emotion in there, but also like, I'm Peter Pan, like I don't, devil may care, you know, I know.
yeah, you did a great job with that. And that's kind of what I was intending. Like, I think that's amazing when you hear a narrator and they capture the intent, right? That may be not obvious in the description. So
Yeah,
I love that. And not only that, but I noticed that the character Betty, she grew. Like as she went on, her voice became stronger and more confident. And I was like, how did you do that?
well, I was just following your writing because that's who she was.
That was amazing because she started like very timid. Her voice kind of like, oh, and then as she went along, she kind of like, well, this is what we gotta do. What other like books have you? I mean, I know you've done a lot. What were some of the highlights, or you want to
um
share about?
I think there's a series I'm working on right now. I'm about to start the third book, and it's called the High Court of the Coffee Bean series. I think I have, yeah, here it's one. And so I love to get print copies of my books, even though
Uh,
I like hardly ever read the print copy because I use the ebook for narrating and then I just like to have them.
oh,
So Welcome to Faye Cafe. It's
that's so
by Canadian.
cute.
Oh, I'm Canadian. I don't know if I mentioned that.
Okay.
Um, so it takes place in Toronto, and it's about these four Fae assassins that come and have to exist in the human realm and how they don't understand what's going on, and it's so hilarious. And
Aw.
I think I had so much fun with that. I just really I feel like I want to like that sort of it's like a rom-com fantasy. So that's been really fun. And so I'm about to do the third book in that series. And but your book, I don't know if I have that here. That's like my highlight. It is so gorgeous. Like with all, I don't know if everybody's seen like
I was
you
so
can see like
flattered that
the
you got.
illustrations in
Oh,
here, like they like are absolutely incredible. So I felt like I'm like people should get the audiobook, but also
they need
people
to.
should get the paper copy. And like it's just it's epic. Like look, this is an actual scene in the book that I had to narrate.
Yeah, that was a voice that was very. That water goal was, I think, the harshest voice of all.
Right. And it's just it's absolutely full. Like how many illustrations are in this?
I can't remember how many because I was trying to do them at like regular intervals, so it wouldn't be just
Yeah.
heavy on one area. But yeah, that was her name's Jolene Scheepers, and she's of Enchanted Inc. AI Studio, and that's another story that was incredible. The way I met her, she's in South Africa.
Oh really? See, she's so pretty.
The way she captured. She actually had never thought about working with authors before, and then I connected with her, and then that's now her passion is
Yeah,
working.
it added so much to the book, and especially because I was all those characters, right? I was like,
That's
there he
it.
is. I'm like, that's just what I thought he was gonna look like. And it
Oh,
was so great.
well, I thought it was so crazy because I was like, I had just pushed publish, like, and they had just approved it, and then all of a sudden she said, "Oh, I have it." I'm like, how did you get it so fast? I didn't get my copy that fast. They were really like
Amazon
three.
was on top of things.
They were. That was amazing. I was like, and that, a lot of people were looking at because I said illustrated, illustrated, and they're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. But when they saw your video, the pictures, they're like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a way for authors, like when they hear it on Audible, is there a way for them to take like a clip and share it, like a small clip, or no?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you have a particular scene, I can send you the the WAV file. Um,
Okay.
or you can let me know and I can put it into something for you or
The Jolly Roger steered on its own, as if it knew the way. Betty rested her hand on the helm, just to lend herself more confidence, and waved her hat bravely to her comrades who had gone ashore. They looked so sad, and that made Betty happy, for she had never realized before how much she meant to them. She wondered which path each of them would take as the bow of the ship dove into the ghostly mist, and gradually the light of Frida's lantern on shore was swallowed in the fog. The fog did not lift. The creaking of the mast sounded like the dead turning in their graves. An albatross landed on a beam and fixed Betty with red eyes. "Water, water everywhere," quoted Betty, watching the albatross. Not far behind the albatross, a pale blue light pierced the mist and descended upon the deck like a falling star. The beams of the 4 points stretched broader into the shape of a giant bat. The bottom tip of the star lit on the deck like a dancer performing a brise-volee. Blue and silver wings unfolded to reveal Count Vlad Topov. He fixed his eyes on Betty, brows arched and mouth turned up in a sneer. He drew the wings apart from his body and tucked them behind his shoulders to form a cloak. "Now we take what belongs to us." Betty placed her hand on the hilt of Hook's rapier. "Where is Edmund?" "Edmund." Topov adjusted his blue-silver gloves. "Pathetic Edmund." He approached her through the mist. "His vanity cost him his soul. And you, Beatrice, like Dante's Inferno, will you intercede for him and save his soul from hell? It's no good. No good at all." Betty matched his hauteur as best she could. "If all I do will be of no avail, why does the great Count Topov bother to board my ship?" He took a moment to assess her. "Why would I not come? Such a beautiful champion. Yet Edmund chose Miss Daphne Graham. Such a stupid man." He noted with sadistic pleasure that he had hit home. Betty's shoulders sagged, her eyes saddened, but her chin remained defiant, though it quivered. He échappéed up to her. In a theatrical style, he proclaimed, "I have not come to harm you, lovely Beatrice, but to warn you. The undead call out. Do you hear them? There, a gremlin lurks. And there, behind the mast, a goblin who will devour your soul as soon as you fall asleep. And up there, among the sheets, the ghosts appear here, then there, until they swoop and pull you down." As he spoke, she spied the creatures he described. A gremlin gurgled and ducked behind the mizzen. A goblin peered with glowing saucer-shaped eyes through a partly opened hatchway in the deck. The white, luminescent spirits whirled and wailed through the masts, sails, and lofts. "I am not your slave or anybody else's. I am an intercessor. The ghosts, the goblins, and even you cannot harm me." "And you would do all this for Edmund?" She aimed the point of her rapier at his throat. "I do this because this is what I must do. If I lose Edmund, so be it. But I will not lose my world to the likes of you." "Then," the Count's face clouded over, "so be it."
So,
my favorite part was Sherlock Holmes.
oh, really?
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting. Yeah, I liked how that the whole cycle of their relationship.
He's back in book
Mm.
2.
Ooh.
But one thing I did try, and I think, and I'm really glad that you kind of carried this through when you did the narration too, is that I don't want to put anything in the book that would not be true with the original story, with the original character.
Yes.
So I
Yeah.
did a lot. I always went back, double checked, made sure that what time era was this, what would Sherlock Holmes be doing at this moment in that story, and using wording and dialogue that was from, the original or sounded like the original. So
Yeah.
I wanted to feel like you really were Betty, with Betty going into those worlds. So, and I'm glad that you
You
captured
did
that.
a fabulous job with that. Like with all of the stories, you could, they each had their own personality, I guess.
So you felt like you really were traveling into those.
Yeah, and it's funny because I just did my kids and I we've been studying Africa, so we just did like a whole like months of studying North Africa and like some of the military campaigns up there. So it was really fun to be able to do that scene with the Legionnaires,
Oh yes.
going to the Oasis.
That's another part I loved. I would love, I'm like, which part do I show the people? Because you did so good. Each of the Legionnaires, they had their own personality, right? And that was so amazing.
Yeah. So that's what I like with the library, character library that I make, that you really have to think about, okay, like who is this person? And for me, that's part of the creative process, is really just, when you're nailing down their voice, like you have to read the whole book first so that you can figure out, okay, who is this person and where are they going and what are they doing?
Yeah. What advice would you give to authors who are thinking about doing an audiobook or getting an audiobook done?
Do it. I think it's good to listen to like a variety of people, because you want to have the voice that matches your book, and just just have a good listen to their samples and get a good variety of what they can do. And just with the authors that I've worked with, they said they knew, like when they found the right narrator, like they listened and they're like, oh, maybe audiobooks aren't for me, but just don't give up and keep listening to a variety of people until you find the one that clicks.
Yeah, I think that I was just lucky that I have.
Because I had people who are like, they put up because you can go onto acx.com and you can put up your book for auditions. And I've heard that's quite interesting. Sometimes you get like AI voices, or people who sound like they're recording on their cell phone in their car, and you get everything. And so this one author I worked with, she had it up for a while and she was like, I was going to take it down, and I thought, like, this is not going to happen. And then luckily I found it. And she said, oh, as soon as I heard it, I was like, this is the one. But yeah, and I think obviously it's a big investment, but it's so, I think, if as an author, to hear, like, sometimes I'll watch, because I follow a lot of authors, and then I'll hear them talking about their audiobook release and listening to the samples and like the excitement that they have to hear your story brought to life in that way. And I think it's worth the investment.
Just to conclude here, how can we support you or help you, share what your gifts, your talents? How can we help you?
I don't know, just keep talking about audiobooks. I got all my book club. We've been a book club for, I don't know, 15 years or something. After I started narrating, I've got everybody in the book club listening to audiobooks now, and nobody was listening to them before. So and one girl, she's like, I don't know, I don't think it's for me, because she had trouble concentrating. I think she was kind of multitasking too much. So for me, listening to audiobooks, I can't be doing something else that involves too much thinking. Like, I'll listen to audiobooks if I'm going for a long drive, but not if I'm
Mm.
going to a new place that I've never
Right.
been to before.
Yeah.
I have to figure out where I'm going. I do it when at the grocery store, actually,
Oh.
because you don't have to think too hard if you got your list. You're going around doing your grocery shopping, cleaning the house, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But just even though I always loved reading aloud, I didn't listen to a whole lot of audiobooks. And then when I realized I wanted to do this as a job, I figured I should figure out what other people were doing. And
So
my
just
kids listen to audiobooks all the time. Like we've just all of a sudden, it's really opened up, and people, and then you don't have to feel bad and sit around in your dirty in your dirty house because you're like, I couldn't put the chapter down. Right now, you can have your cake and eat it too. So
That's
just
true.
if you just talk about your audiobook listening experience and how it makes the story come to life, just
Yeah.
that's what we love to hear.
All right, definitely. We will definitely do so. So thank you so much for joining us today. And everyone, please start sharing about your audiobooks.